Hi everyone, Spider-Man 1991 here, and I'm doing my monthly graphic novel review show called GN Monthly. For this episode, I decided to combine the graphic... last month in June, I only read about 2 graphic novels, so I just decided to add those to July, because I was expecting a few more books, to read a lot more books this month, and, well, pretty much, this is the entire stack for both July and June. So, and good news is, they're all Marvel, and you can just and if you really want to boil them down to just 2 things, it's just basically Avengers stories and X-Men stories that I read. Okay, so we're going to start this off. Remember, they're all Marvel with Hawkeye, Volume 2. Well, Matt Fraction continues to do a good job on this series. In this book, we pretty much it reprints the Hurricane Sandy issue, as well as a story arc that involves the woman from the last volume that involves the tracksuit mob, the Russian tracksuit mob, and also the last issue in this involves Pizza Dog. So, yay for that. So yeah, great. Hawkeye Volume 2, once again, Matt Fraction proves why this is one of the best series that Marvel has to offer. Unfortunately, I'm not getting it issue by issue, I'm just trade waiting it, which is really something that I would say, I'd say if you haven't been reading Hawkeye, get the first volume, because I loved that, and get the second volume too, because the way Matt Fraction writes it is that he really proves that even though a lot of people don't think of Hawkeye much outside of the Avengers, Matt Fraction does a great job proving that Hawkeye can stand on his own without the Avengers. So that's why I highly recommend Hawkeye Volume 2. Moving on. We have Avengers, Vision, and Scarlet Witch. This volume reprints Giant-Size Avengers number 4, as well as the first Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries, which was just 4 issues, and it kind of chronicled their lives right after they got married. Pretty much after in Giant-Size Avengers number 4, that's when the actual wedding took place, where Immortus married Vision and Scarlet Witch, as well as Mantis and I think and the Swordsman. The thing about Giant-Size Avengers number 4 is that there was a story part. Half of it was like involving the story arc with Mantis and something about the Earth Spirit, but the Giant-Size Avengers number 4, I really think they didn't have to reprint the whole thing, but just the Vision and Scarlet Witch parts, but we got the full thing, and it wasn't really that bad. I just think that I was just lost at times, because it was a continuation of another story arc, and so I was just a little confused by it. That's all. But then we got into the real seller for this book is the Vision Scarlet Witch miniseries, which was just 4 issues, and pretty much after Wanda and Vision got married, they decided to take a break from the Avengers, and they bought a house in New Jersey, and they just lived there, and they pretty much went through the whole honeymoon phase and tried to start a new life, and at the end of the miniseries, we get the grand revelation that is something that everyone knows now, is that Magneto is really the father of both Wanda, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver. So yeah, that was pretty great. The thing is with this book, I think if you get this just for the Vision Scarlet Witch miniseries, you're gonna be fine, because it's really a great miniseries, especially the way how everything kind of flows in, the way every issue just kind of like flows into one another. It's very nice. There's story arcs that pretty much involve a number of things from Wanda and Vision's past. The first issue just kind of sets it up. It shows them in their house in New Jersey. Then apparently circumstances lead them to meeting up with the Wizard, who Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver initially believed to be their father. Then that leads into Vision having to deal with teaming up with Wonder Man to stop the Grim Reaper. Then finally, the whole revelation about Magneto. Very nice. If you are a fan of either the Vision or the Scarlet Witch, I would definitely recommend this volume. And if you've been curious about either one, especially Scarlet Witch, because she's gonna be in Avengers too, then I recommend picking this up. Alright, next up, Avengers, Knights of Wundagore. This one kind of takes place, I'd say, right after Giant Size Avengers number 4, but before Vision and the Scarlet Witch. Or during, rather, because it's kind of hard to pinpoint it, but what happens in Knights of Wundagore is pretty much two things happen. First of all, the issue opens up with the Avengers getting security clearance with the government, and because of that, the government's now playing a larger role in the Avengers. This is also when Henry Peter Gyrich appears, and let me tell you right off the bat, guy's a dick. And Gyrich pretty much limits their membership to about 7 members, and they are Iron Man, Vision, Captain America, Scarlet Witch, Beast, Wasp, and finally the Falcon, who wasn't even a member at the time. They just Gyrich had them pick the Falcon because for equal opportunities for minorities. It's just, oh my god, it was the worst reason. Everyone was against it, but Gyrich made them. Otherwise, they'd lose the special security clearance that they got. So Cap is able to convince the Falcon to join them, and everything else. Then also we get a story arc where Wanda and Pietro's Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver's adoptive gypsy father from Europe shows up, tries to get his kids to come back with him, and they pretty much decide to go with it. And they decide to go with him, and that pretty much leads them to going back to Wundagore, and that's where they find the High Evolutionary. And there's also this demon named Chithron that possesses Wanda, and it forces the Avengers to come in, but fortunately they're able to stop Chithron. And then it's revealed more about, and there's more given information about Wanda and Pietro's backstory, that apparently they were given to a gypsy couple right after they were born, and also that their biological parents aren't the Wizard and Miss America, which is what they originally thought. It turns out their biological mother was a woman named Magda, and that pretty much led into the whole events that pretty much led into the whole revelation that Magneto is their father. They didn't find out in this issue, in this story arc though. They found out in Vision and Scarlet Witch. Remember that. But yeah, so I'd say if you're gonna get Vision and Scarlet Witch, then I recommend getting Knights of Wundagore 2. They both go hand in hand with each other, although I would say that Knights of Wundagore kind of happens after Giant Size Avengers number 4 and probably a little bit before Vision and Scarlet Witch. Okay, moving right along. Of course, continuing this theme, we have the second Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries, A Year in the Life. This pretty much takes place after Vision was possessed by the supercomputer Isaac. Yeah, I believe that's when it happened. The government kind of went through a whole security scan with Vision since he's still on the Avengers roster. So Wanda decided to get out of this quickly, and they both agreed to quit the Avengers. And then they decided to go back to New Jersey because apparently their house was burnt down by a bunch of angry citizens a few issues ago back in Avengers, and they decided to move back to New Jersey, try to lead a normal life. Of course, they're superheroes, they can't. And around the 3rd issue, though, after teaming up with the West Coast Avengers and Vision meeting Wonder Man and Grim Reaper's mother, who, after all, Vision does have Wonder Man's brainwave, so he's kind of like their brother. After that, Vision and Wanda talk about having kids, and at the end of the issue, Wanda, using her reality warping powers, gets herself pregnant. That's kind of how it happens. She basically alters probability and becomes pregnant, and the rest of the miniseries is just Wanda and Vision. She's pregnant, and they're kind of going through the whole getting ready for the baby and stuff, while also dealing with a couple of superpower, while also dealing with their lives as superheroes. And the issue ends with Wanda giving birth to 2 baby boys, Thomas and William. Vision and Scarlet Witch, A Year in the Life. This is kind of something that I would recommend to people who liked House of M or Avengers Disassembled, and this is partially one of the reasons that led into those events. as well as this is also where technically Wiccan and Speed were born in their previous incarnations before House of M. That's kind of a whole thing I'll get into later, but right now, Vision, Scarlet Witch, Year in the Life, very great. It's definitely a great miniseries that looks at two superheroes who fall in love and decide to try and lets you see into what marriage life holds for them. I recommend it, especially if you're a fan of these two characters. Right, next up, Avengers West Coast Assemble. After Vision becomes chairman and he's hooked up to a supercomputer, he realizes that it's not just Vision, but also circumstances where the Avengers have tried to limit their roster. Captain America when Captain America was chairman, he even put down a rule saying that, okay, only 6 members, that's it. Pretty much after that, the Vision decides to split the team, decides to set up a West Coast branch, and that's where that's pretty much where Hawkeye comes in. Hawkeye and Mockingbird are sent to California to set up another West Coast branch, and the people they invite to join the team initially are Wonder Man, Tigra, and Iron Man, who for the first part of West Coast Avengers is actually Jim Rhodes. Tony Stark was still dealing with his alcoholism, and this is when this happened back during Rhodey's tenure as Iron Man, when Tony was really going through some stuff. West Coast Avengers Assemble. Very great story. I like it. This was a pretty interesting team to say the least. Nice. Also, this is where I believe Rhodey probably for the first time told people that he wasn't the original Iron Man, and he even unmasked himself to show the West Coast Avengers, as a form of trust, which was very nice. This story does also feature a team up with the East Coast team, and it's very nice. I would definitely recommend, if you've ever been curious about what the West Coast Avengers was like, definitely pick this up, see where it all began, and it's very interesting stuff. Okay, moving along, we've got, continuing our trip with Avengers West Coast, we have Vision Quest. This was written by John Bryan. Pretty much, after all the problems with the Vision, several world governments formed a sort of task force to kidnap the Vision from the Avengers West Coast compound, because at the time, the Scarlet Witch and Vision were staying with the West Coast team. So pretty much, this agency task force this task force has like several people represented from different governments, England, Canada, U.S. They kind of trick Mockingbird, Hawkeye's, at this point, pretty much between now and West Coast Avengers Assemble, they were going through some marital problems and they were separated, and so they trick Mockingbird into helping them infiltrate the West Coast compound, and when they infiltrate, they are able to not only kidnap the Vision, but also wipe all the Avengers computers, both West and East Coast, with a bug that deletes all data about the Vision. So when the West Coast Avengers figure out that Vision's missing, they track him down, and Mockingbird does come to the West Coast team and tell them and explains to them what happened. And they go to where the base is located. They break in. They find unfortunately though, when they arrive, they're too late, and the Vision is disassembled. His parts are scattered everywhere. Also, when the Wasp is searching the complex, she finds out that they also kidnapped the original creator of the Human Torch android back in World War II, Professor Horton, and Horton reveals that from what he's seen about the Vision, that none of it is his work. And at this point, though, a lot of people believe that the Vision was actually the original Human Torch android, but recreated by Ultron to be the Vision. So now that was established that the Vision is not the original Human Torch, and then what happens is, what happens next is the West Coast Avengers take Vision back to the compound. Hank Pym is able to reassemble Vision. Unfortunately, though, Vision's entire human memories, his human emotions are all gone, and he's just basically a robot, and that really upsets Wanda, who's his wife, and it worries her. And when she does, and they do figure out that they could probably restore the Vision's human personality if they, did the same. If they did the same procedure that gave it to him in the first place by using Wonder Man's brainwaves, but Simon doesn't want to. He says he went through that process once and felt like ripping out his soul, so that wasn't it. And after that, though, leads to a number of investigations into what could happen. Also, in this volume, the government, after hearing about what the West Coast team did to get Vision back, they send in someone to join their team to keep them under control, and it's U.S. agent. And then the West Coast Avengers do decide to look into more information about the Human Torch, and they discover that, and they're able to find out where the original Human Torch from World War II, Jim Hammond. They find him, and he joins and the story pretty much ends with him joining the West Coast Avengers. So this was pretty much when John Bryan took over West Coast Avengers. He kind of really started to push the character of the Scarlet Witch in a darker direction by, in this way, sort of tearing away most of her life. In this case, first she loses her husband. Then, in the next volume here, Darker Than Scarlet, we learn the truth about her children. Now, pretty much what's happened in the revelation behind Wanda's children is that apparently they don't really exist, even though she altered reality to create them. Pretty much throughout Vision Quest, whenever Wanda apparently doesn't think about her children, they just disappear from existence. And the only way that they remain is if she thinks about them. And in this volume, Darker Than Scarlet, we get the grand revelation that they're apparently the original parts of Mephisto's essence, and the twins are kidnapped by Master Pandemonium, who was originally believing that they were part of his soul, but then Mephisto shows up, takes all Pandemonium's powers and the kids, and reveals that, they were part of him the whole time, and just things really do not go well for Wanda. Okay, her husband is no longer, he pretty much loses all human feeling, and he's just a robot now. Secondly, she loses her kids, and all of this information pretty much messes with her head, and she almost becomes a supervillain in this story arc. She joins up with Magneto, and Quicksilver shows up too, initially showing that he's on their side, but it's actually real. He's working for the Avengers to save his sister, and apparently this was all part of a grand scheme by Immortus, who wants to use Wanda to help control all of the alternate timelines, so he can destroy them all and pretty much control one single timeline. And that's what happens. Pretty much Darker Than Scarlet. Pretty much Vision Quest. I highly recommend on its own. I would say this is great. Unfortunately, though, this graphic novel is pretty rare. It's hard to find. I mean, I went on eBay a couple of times. First I checked Amazon's marketplace where they have used books, and some people were charging like $40 for this, which is outlandish. Then I checked a couple of places, and I checked eBay a couple of times. Didn't come up, but then I saw this in auction. I bid on it, and fortunately I got it at a reasonable price at, I think, maybe $15 or $20, so that was a good deal. I'm very happy I got it at a reasonable price. And Darker Than Scarlet, this one was actually a little easier to find. So I recommend getting Darker Than Scarlet if you want more after Vision Quest. And also Darker Than Scarlet again. And also to help make sure this whole event of after realizing what her children really are, to help Wanda cope with things, Agatha Harkness did erase them from Wanda's memory to make sure it doesn't happen again. And all of that did lead into House of M, which made Wanda go crazy and nearly destroy the Avengers. And Avengers disassembled. Then she altered reality in House of M. And after that, the whole mutant decimation, which this is all still pretty recent. I'm pretty sure people remember it. And yeah, so all those stories that I just said about the Avengers, they're all Scarlet Witch oriented. I was reading those mostly because I do have an interest in the character. Also, I've read Young Avengers, so if you've read Young Avengers with stuff that involves Wiccan and Speed and how they're really the reincarnations of Wanda's children, and also if you've read Avengers Disassembled or House of M and you want to see how all that stuff came to be, then I'd recommend starting with all the Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries, as well as Vision Quest and Darker Than Scarlet. Okay, that's pretty much all the Avengers themed story arcs I have. Sorry about that. Now it's time for X-Men, starting off with Mutant Massacre. Pretty much the gist behind the story arc is the first group of Marauders are formed, and they go and pretty much kill almost every single Morlock in the Morlock tunnels. Yeah, and a lot of things did, and this didn't just take place in Uncanny X-Men. It also got X Factor involved, as well as an issue of New Mutants that kind of acted as an interlude between them. Pretty much a lot of stuff happened in this because of this story arc. This was the story arc where Angel's wings were destroyed and then later amputated, and that led into him becoming Apocalypse's Horseman of Death. And speaking of Apocalypse, he also has a cameo in this when he collects his first horseman, the horseman he uses for Pestilence. That's pretty much a brief moment in this. Excuse me. Also, Nightcrawler, who was pretty much weakened after the story arc that took place before this, involving Nimrod. His teleporting abilities are weakened, and when he tries to fight the Marauders, he goes comatose. And K-Pride, she's stuck in her intangible form for a while, and because of that, those two eventually are out of commission for a while, and eventually that leads into that getting sent to Myrrh Island, and once they're cured, they form Excalibur over there. Yeah, just pretty much a lot of stuff happened in this story arc, and that led into some other changes with the X-Men universe, particularly the thing with Angel and his wings. That's one of the reasons I got this, but also because it is a pretty huge violent book. Oh yeah, another thing, because X Factor's involved, when Wolverine is later searching the Morlock tunnels for survivors, he discovers the scent of Jean Grey, and he knows that Jean Grey's alive, and he doesn't tell any of the X-Men after this, not for a while. Yeah, so oh yeah, and Psylocke joins the X-Men in this too. Feel the need to mention that this is when Psylocke joins the X-Men. Pretty great stuff. Yeah, and you can also see some still mutant. And pretty much you can still see the campaign people have against mutants in this too. Very, very great story. Highly recommend it. If you are a fan of X-Men, I would say get Mutant Massacre. This is probably one of the most notable storylines in the X-Men universe when Chris Claremont was writing the series. Pretty great writer. He did a lot for the X-Men. I think this is pretty much one of the bullet points of his run. Okay, moving on. Uncanny X-Men Breaking Point. Pretty much the aliens from Breakworld return. This is kind of I'd say this is kind of an epilogue to Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men. Everything that involved Breakworld on that, it's kind of taken care of with this. Also, this is the story arc that gave K-Pride her physical form back. Up until this, she was stuck after Magneto, when she was stuck in the bullet that was fired at the end of Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men. Magneto eventually brought the bullet back to Earth and cracked it open. And when it was revealed that Kitty was alive, she was alive, but she was stuck in her intangible form again. So they couldn't figure out and this is pretty much the story arc that brought Kitty her physical form back, which is great. Also, and like I said, this deals with also the aliens from Breakworld return, and in a way it does act as kind of an epilogue to that. So I would say if you read Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men, I recommend getting this. It's a very nice it's not specifically stated it's an epilogue, it's just kind of like what happens. It's just kind of like you know, it's not necessary, but just something if you're interested in it. It's by Kieran Gillen, so, and the guy's a pretty good writer, so I recommend it if you liked the whole Break World thing by Joss Whedon on Astonishing X-Men. Okay, finally, my last book, Wolverine, Enemy of the State. Pretty much, Wolverine is killed, then brought back to life by Hydra using a ritual by the hand, and this is all done so that Hydra could have their own assassin. So pretty much when Wolverine does come back, he's also brainwashed to work for Hydra, and they send him to try to assassinate the superheroes of the Marvel Universe. And apparently this is all part of a plan they're thinking of that Hydra wants. They want the Hand to pretty much help them create their own assassins to help infiltrate the superhero community. And during the story, Logan's fighting the brainwashing. Eventually he gets free and he's able to team up with Elektra to get Hydra back for this. Okay, Wolverine, Enemy of the State. It's written by Mark Millar, art by John Romita Jr., the team behind Kick-Ass and Kick-Ass 2. If you like those two stories, if you like Mark Millar, highly recommend this book. It's really awesome. Okay, it's violent Wolverine, and he is going up against the entire Marvel Universe, but he gets control again, and he pretty much makes Hydra pay big time. So yeah, and I would say this is probably one of the best Wolverine stories around. A lot of people recommend it. I didn't actually get to read it until June, but man, it is really great. Highly recommend it. Okay, well, that's it for me. Sorry if I kind of had to rush through little things, but there was a lot of books I had to talk about. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Spider-Man 1991 saying see you later.